Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to yet another edition of Truth to Power. My name is Faraz Patel. I will be in your company for the next 50 minutes or so. Now, when we entered in democracy, our former president Nelson Mandela once said that sport has the power to unite everyone. Sport has the power to change everything. But when you look at what happened in the last few weeks, has the statement really been practiced very well? Well, it seems it hasn't happened that way. What we have seen within some of our major sporting codes in South Africa is that there is deep division that still exists, and that players from previously disadvantaged backgrounds continually need to work even more harder to earn their spots in their respective national teams. It's a sad indictment of how our sports has gone, but unfortunately it seems as if some of the administrators want to still not pursue the sense of transformation. So in this episode, we are going to be talking about racism in sport. We are going to be talking about how Black Lives Matter is trying to change that narrative, but it may just have to wait a little longer because we have administrators who are not willing to make that change. We've seen, of course, in the rugby fields that some of our Springbok players, the players who won a World Cup with us last year, refused to take a knee in the English Premiership. It's a very sad indictment, but unfortunately that is the reality that we're faced with. So my guest today to discuss this, I have with me Sibusiso Mjikeliso. He's a senior sports writer for News 24, and I have Garnet Kruger. He was a former Proteas fast bowler. Gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Hi, Sibusiso.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Garnet. How's it?
Good. I'm fine.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time for us. Garnet, I want to start off with you. Well, we know it's been a turbulent few weeks for CSA with the change of leadership, but what was more turbulent was what Lungi Ngidi had come out in terms of saying, let's get and back the Black Lives Matter. It has been met with a lot of resistance from a lot of former Proteas players. And then, of course, we heard what Makaya Ntini said when he mentioned about how isolated he was during his time with the Proteas. I just want to get your reaction to that, Garnet. And was that something that you saw in the Proteas camp during your time with the team?
Yeah, it's something that I most definitely experienced when I was in the camp from 2003 when I first got into the camp. And then obviously when I got a call up to go to Australia in 2005. So I more so saw it when I was with the guys traveling to Australia, where even to an extent I didn't get to play. And when I raised questions when I came back, there was no reply, nothing. Everything got swept under the carpet. And luckily now I've got an opportunity to actually raise my point again. Obviously, it's thanks to Lungi Ngidi, but also Black Lives Matter, which started in the USA, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, Lungi was just in support of Black Lives Matter, and the three former Proteas, they actually did us a favor by speaking out. And obviously, by them speaking out, people took note of what they commented on. And what they commented on was almost as to say, yeah, but farmers also matter. We never say anybody did not matter, or Lungi Ngidi did not say anybody did not matter, but we also said that there is black people being killed. And obviously, in that, we got a bit of voice, and we started voicing our opinions of what happened to us in the past. And obviously, there's more and more guys coming out. So that's basically what transpired, thanks to those three former Protea players.
Sbu, I want to bring you into the conversation. And Sbu's not just a fantastic sports journalist. He is, of course, the author of the book, Being a Black Springbok, the story of Tando Manana, who, of course, played for the Springboks, but just had a handful of caps. Sbu, you experienced it sitting with Tando and just hearing his stories. Just give the viewers an idea of the pain that he experienced being in that Springbok camp, having that isolation, and him having to work even 10 times harder to earn that green and gold jersey?
Yeah, though Tando played in a totally different time as to now. It's incredible that he even made it that far. Actually, when you look back at his beginning, he started rugby pretty late. He played cricket, funny enough, with Ashwell Prince at St. Thomas Secondary School in Galvindale, Port Elizabeth. Same school as Ashwell Prince, who became a Protea. But then Tando's build sort of attracted a rugby coach who was his teacher at the time. And, you know, his determination to make it as a rugby player led him to be the first Black African to play for Griquas. But when he was playing, you know, he would always only be contracted for things like the Currie Cup or the Vodacom Cup. He never had a long-term contract, a year, 2 years, Tando. It always seemed like he's dispensable. The fact that he even made it to the Springboks then, and then they used to have this touring team that they would have. So the Springboks would play the tests and pretty much all the Blacks would play the midweek games. And that's how you were capped back then. You'd still be capped, but it was like in an unofficial test. So Tando ended up playing 3 unofficial tests for South Africa. The same applied to Owen Gumane, who was the first Black African to play for the Springboks. He played in an unofficial test. And the first test playing Black African was the center Kaya Malotana. So therein already they've created this system where legacy-wise, you know, it's easy to discredit guys because of the fact that they played midweek tests against A teams or against club teams. So already their legacy has been put to the back foot because they never managed to play an official test. That for me was one of the things that were a deep injustice, because as much as they are recognized Springboks, they're still short of something, you know. And I'm sure Garnet can also speak to this, is that, you know, you look at a guy like Aaron Pangiso, he's a Protea that went to the World Cup, but he never played a single game. And you really wonder what the justification was to not even play a guy one game. And he was the only member of the squad not to do so. So those were some of the things that were sort of endemic to the sport. And I think they still very much are.
Garnet, I want to bring you into this. So you get called up to the Protea squad. If I'm not mistaken, the coach was Eric Simons. Do correct me if I'm wrong. And you're in the setup. Just to give the viewers an idea of, as a player of color, how difficult was it for you to make your impact, to say, well, I'm going to start Garnet in the first 10 overs of a certain one-day international. Give us an idea of the challenge that you faced being in that Springbok, in that Protea squad, and just having to really step up so many levels to at least get a start in the team.
Yeah, Frans, so the coach was Mickey Arthur, and his assistant bowling coach at the time was Vinnie Barnes. And my whole selection came because I had a very good 4-day campaign, which would lead into the test series going to Australia. And I was forced to be selected because of my outstanding performances. I joined the team at the airport. Obviously, I probably just finished a 4-day game. Or no, the 1 day has just started. It was a break. So I was still fresh. I was feeling good and I was bowling well. I joined the team. We flew over to Australia. First, a warm-up game. I still bowled well. I got 4 wickets. Then there was another warm-up game. I think I only bowled 1 spell. And then the test matches started in Perth, and the wickets, obviously, they're perfect for my conditions, but I did not get selected. In fact, I didn't play in any of the test matches. And then after that, there was one dayers. And the only reason why I stayed for the one days is because Makaya had a bad knee. If Makaya was fit, I'm sure that they would have sent me packing. As a matter of fact, I got my notice from the manager at the time, Gulam Raja, as to get my stuff ready after the test, because you're flying out that next morning early. So yeah, whatever I played, I was very fortunate to play those one-day games in Australia and the T20s under the captaincy of Graeme Smith. But still, I mean, I did well in the test format, in the longer format of the game, and they I think deliberately didn't want me to play any test matches.
Spoo, I want to bring it to you. Just listening to Garnet, and then you can relate it to what, of course, Makaya said during his interview with the SABC. I think as you know, both you and I were youngsters at the time, you know, we're seeing this black African come onto the scene and we're thinking, yes, finally, here's a time. We're going to see a player of color, a fast bowler, somebody who did so well for Border during the domestic campaign. But we didn't understand the behind the scenes because Makaya was taking all these wickets. He was breaking all those records. We saw what he did in that Lord's Test in 2003. Little did we know of the pain and the isolation that Makaya felt during those eras with the Proteas.
Yeah, look, Makaya's story is one that's quite incredible. When you even take it further back than that, coming from Umtingi in the rural Eastern Cape, in King Williamstown, very, very close to where I'm from as well. And him having to go from there straight to Dale College, you know, he would have felt that it's school already. And he would have really, really been isolated there. And that you can think of those 5 years he'd spent at school, high school, and then to become a Protea so young, so early, he probably didn't know what to expect. And he probably was thinking, man, this is taking me back to when I was a youngster and starting my high schooling, and I didn't know anyone, couldn't speak the language. You can only imagine the trauma of being alone, away from home now. Now you're not just at Dale College where at least, you know, you can, you know, if there are Xhosa boys around, you can converse. But now you're touring. You're in countries like Australia, you're in India, you're in England, and parts of South Africa that you'd never been before. And you're supposedly in this team. And in this team, you where you spend most of your time, you've got no one to talk to, bar maybe Lance Klusner. It must have been really, really tough for him. I mean, I can just imagine what it was like, and I don't even think we understand from what he's told us. I mean, yeah, sure, we heard that he used to run from the practice grounds or from the training grounds to the hotel. That's only just part of it. Like, you know, late at night before matches or in between, you know, the lunch breaks. Who did he sit with? Who did he, you know, sort of strategize with? If the culture in a sporting high performance environment requires lots of communication, did people really get into sort of that much attention to Makaya Ntini to say, do you understand exactly what's required of the team? You know, it's not enough to be talented. You need to feel part of the team, part of the strategy, to be, you know, say, okay, Garnett's bowling one end, Makaya's bowling the other end. You must be trusted as black guys that you will deliver on what the team wants. And, you know, it would have taken years for Makaya to try and get that trust and to get that approval and to feel part of the team. And it's crazy when you see guys that came in after him, like Mondes Ndeki, Lonwabo Tsotsobe, way later after Makaya had been established, for them to still not recognize or see Makaya as an established senior cricketer. They got there and he was treated like the rest of them, like he had just arrived right off the street. And he never commanded the same respect as Mark Boucher, for instance, who played longer than perhaps his performances should have allowed. Graham Smith, Jacques Callis, these are the guys Makaya Ntini was on par with or should have been on par with. But as we know, there were clicks involved and he didn't even feel part of the team. So yeah, I seriously think we only know just the tip of the iceberg and we don't really know the full picture.
It definitely is just the tip of the iceberg. Gentlemen, we'll be coming back to continue the discussion of racism in sport, South African sport, and of course how the Black Lives Matter can try and push for that certain bit of transformation that we need. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to Truth to Power. I'm in conversation with Garnet Kruger, former Proteas fast bowler and senior sports writer for News 24, Sibusiso Mjikeliso. Garnet, I want to come to you and let's just focus on that Australian tour in 2005-06. There was an incident that happened in Perth where yourself, Makaya Ntini and Ashwell Prince were subjected to racial slurs. Just give an idea to everyone about how bad that situation truly was.
So yeah, I was doing 12-man duty and I was behind Makaya and I was there for quite a while. He was busy with a bowling spell. So he would focus on bowling, then he would come back, Coke and water, then water. But it would be, he didn't want me to put it down on the ground and he wanted me to stay there and chat to him as well. Just keep him company because we were chasing a bit of leather at one stage of the game. And there was people mumbling at the back and they were shouting Makaya's name a couple of times. And eventually what happened, the guy said something and I looked to try and see who it was. And I couldn't see who it was. And I told Makaya, listen, I'm going to go and tell the people what I heard. So obviously I went to management and I told management and what happened from there, as I could understand it, because I had to leave again to make sure that I don't miss if anybody wants anything to drink. And then I later on heard that they just said that we must get on with it. Come guys, let's just get on with it, come. And that was the kind of attitude they had. So they didn't really focus on it. We mentioned it. That's why I had made the newspaper, but nothing was done about it.
And Spoo, I want to bring this into context. Let's bring it as recent as last year. The bomb squad incident where Makazola Mapimpi was completely ignored when he went to just hurdle with some of the players. Now, of course, Makazole came out and he said it was nothing. One would think that he would do that to keep the peace, to keep the unity and the harmony within the Springbok team. But surely there are underlying issues to this. You have to look at it that way because you can't just ignore your fellow player just like that. What more can be read into that when you're looking at something where, like Garnet said, it was completely ignored what happened in Perth? Is that something that can be relatable to what happened with the bomb squad and Mapimpi?
I think for the comparison, for me, the more appropriate comparison would be perhaps the Ep17 incident, really. Because I feel like the Mapimpi issue, sure, the optics, it doesn't look good. But we just will never know exactly as to what the dynamic was between Mapimpi and his fellow teammates. Of course, there was the bomb squad stuff that later transpired. And look, we won't know the truth of that. But for me, what was really concerning was the fact that they allowed someone who was accused of racially and physically assaulting people in Langeban. That's Ep17, who still has an open case with the South African justice system. The NPA, they haven't closed that case. He hasn't been cleared. He's been cleared internally by SA Rugby. But then you can read into that what you will. For me, no player should be too good to to be free from reproach, to get into the team, act with impunity. If you put yourself in that situation and you're Ep17, the fact of the matter is you shouldn't go with the Springbok team. Two nights before the Springbok team is announced, you're in Langeban getting hammered with your friends, and things happen. Right or wrongly, you shouldn't be in that situation. You should be back here trying to clear your name. And if you miss out on the World Cup as a result, no matter how good you are, that's what should happen. It's almost like as bad as the Apiwe Yankee situation where he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. You just can't say, no, well, he hasn't been proven guilty, therefore he can go and play. It's nonsensical for me that Ep17 traveled with the team. And you could see how awkward it was in some. I remember there was a clip where Damian Willemse joined the team as an injury replacement for Jesse Creel. And he's greeting everyone, Siya Kolisi, and it's all hugs and handshakes, And then when Ep17 comes out and sees Damian Willemse, and Willemse is flying like straight out of Cape Town, and all of this is, obviously close to his heart because he's a Cape Townian and he's colored, and, you are affected. I'm black, I'm affected when people are racially abused anywhere in the world. That it's just, and you could tell that their greeting was very awkward, and Etsebeth did these elaborate things where he was kissing Trevor Nyakane on the forehead after they won, which I thought, maybe it's for show, but for me, it shouldn't have been there. That for me is a more appropriate comparison. That for me shows how much is little action in these sports like cricket and rugby when it comes to racism, how much inaction there is and how little in terms of seriousness there is way back then and as recently as 2019.
Garnet, I want to bring you into this. When, of course, Lungi Ngidi had rallied all of the cricketers past and present to say, let's get behind the Black Lives Matter movement, we found a few former Protea players in Boeta Dippenaar and Pat Simcock saying, well, we're not going to support it. As a former cricketer, Garnet, how hurt were you to see that these former cricketers, and as you mentioned, the first question that I asked you, we're not saying that no lives are important, we're saying all lives are important, but Black Lives Matters even more, especially what we have seen in the United States of America with George Floyd. So just your take on these former cricketers who everyone saw as some sort of heroes or anything like that, to have said, well, we don't really support the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, to be honest, because of my past experiences with these guys, I've played with Boeta Dippenaar. In fact, he was on the test to Australia in 2005. He was on the test series with me. And, you could see that he wasn't happy because he also didn't play a lot of games. But you could see that he was being managed because he's actually a test cricketer and he didn't play in the test matches. He only got one-day games. So they were patient enough with him to keep him there long enough, but they weren't patient to keep me there. So obviously there's discrepancy in how much opportunity we all get. But in terms of what is going on in the system is that these old guys realize that once we give everybody fair and equal opportunity, then there will be less opportunity for them or for others. Because as we know, we need to go out there and go and develop sportsmen. But the more they can break this down, the less sportsmen we can get out of the townships. And so wherever they can, they're breaking off certain things to make sure that there's no growth happening there. So when they made those statements, I kind of knew already that they are trying to break Lungi Ngidi down before anything starts. Unfortunately, what they said enlightened or gave us more strength to talk out and to support Ngidi. I can honestly tell you that there was no way that any of the black or non-white cricketers would not support Black Lives Matter, because all of them has probably been wronged in some form or another. There's a lot of cases, just like you said, this is the tip of the iceberg of what has been going on. And every day I'm hearing new things. Every day I'm more shocked that it is still happening today. It's still happening now as we're sitting here.
Zbu, I want to bring you into this. I remember you tweeted something. I think it was Siya Kolisi and some of his old pals were singing a Xhosa song at Newlands, and there was a reply from somebody whose name I can't remember, and he said, well, the Danny Craven Club won't be happy with this. When you hear the Danny Craven Club, it can only mean the old guard. How afraid are the old guard of revolution and transformation within South African rugby?
Yeah, no, that term Danny Craven is definitely an apt description, because Danny Craven is said to have said that a black person will not play for the Springbok while he is still alive. Well, and to some extent, his words were prophetic. And it seems like there are many who've tried to carry on that mantle that the Springbok is not for black people, and that the leopard is for black people and the Springbok is for white people. There are those who see themselves as proxies for the old regime, and they've sort of told themselves that they'll do everything they can. And they hide behind things such as merit in terms of selection. They hide behind things like forget about the past. They hide behind all lives matter. They hide behind farm murders. You know, it's funny, someone wrote about a piece where they had asked, does farm murders include farm workers at those farms? Because we've seen video clips of, I think it was a security guard who was killed by a farm owner, white farm owner, killing his own worker. I'm not sure if he was a security guard, with a tractor or something of that sort. So that was a couple of years ago. So I don't know if this farm murders narrative also includes the black people who are killed on these farms and they don't get justice. So, I mean, yeah, it's just one of those where anytime black people have a thing of their own, whether they're singing Amagwijo at stadiums, whether they're saying Black Lives Matter, you get some white people coming around the corner to pour cold water on any black people's movement. And that has been the case throughout history.
Garnet, you heard what Zbu said. Of course, Danny Craven's words that while he's alive, and of course looking into the future, he doesn't want to see a player of color wearing the Springbok jersey. He doesn't want to see a black player wearing the Springbok jersey. While his words kind of haven't really been that fulfilled, because we had Siya Kolisi lifting the World Cup last year. But Garnet, in terms of clicks...
Well, he was the captain.
Yeah, exactly. He was the captain. And I think that in itself just shows that Danny Craven, wherever he is right now, well, he's probably in the grave. He could be rolling in the grave for if he had to know what is going on. But Garnet, the click scenario. It's no secret that the Proteas were full of clicks. And of course, it was led by the likes of Mark Boucher, Graham Smith, Jacques Callis. Being a player of color, and seeing these clicks, Garnet, how difficult was it for you not to just mingle with the click, but to try and prove a point because you understood how powerful these clicks are in the selection committee of the Proteas to try and get your place within that team?
Yeah, so I realized how powerful they were when I heard on the circuit a couple of years before I got selected from teammates and from opponents of they don't think they'll get selected. There's a couple of left-handers that played for South Africa, but they never got a good run. And they spoke as friends. We spoke in the changing room amongst each other. And you would say, "Oh, you're scoring runs, eh?" And then you'd say, "Yeah, but I know I'm not going to get into the team." So that's when I saw how powerful the clicks was. If these guys can't get in, how am I going to get in? But like I said, I forced my way in. And once I was in, you try to fit in. It's actually difficult to explain, but because you have links in other friends, there was Charles that was there. Charles Langeveld was on the tour as well, and I knew him very well. I also learned from him, so I was happy he was there. And then Micaiah, obviously, like I spoke to Spoo when we were off air, how I enjoyed watching Micaiah bowl and Nanti Haywood. So they would be your pairing to play under SA under 19. So I kind of knew them, and I kind of tried my way to get in, but somehow you just get shut out. We would chat, but obviously it would be when we bump each other, obviously in an escalator. But in terms of conversation about cricket, about how I'm going to fit in, there was nothing of that, not from anybody. And that also showed me that it's going to be pretty difficult. So I kind of knew early, and all that I wanted was just to play. And you because that's all that you have. You want to play so that you can prove yourself. And if you get denied of that, then you're pretty done for. So, if they don't allow you in that inner circle, then it's impossible. And like I said, I heard on the circuit from players how it's going to be, or what their thinking is of them being left-handers on the circuit.
Spoo, before we go to the ad break, in 2 minutes, Peter de Villiers, of course, he came in and he replaced Jake White after the 2007 World Cup success. And now a lot of people had different views about Peter de Villiers, the way he addresses the media, the way his training methods are, so on and so on. But there's no denying that he was the most successful Springbok manager for that period until obviously 2019 when South Africa won the Rugby Championship and the World Cup. Was he a victim of a board that didn't want to see a non-white manager as a Springbok manager?
Yeah, for us, that's a very loaded question because, Peter de Villiers' appointment was filled with politics. You just have to look at how Jake White was appointed versus Peter de Villiers. Jake had never coached the Super Rugby team, much less coached the Super Rugby team to victory. Everything that Jake had achieved as an SA under 19 or an SA under 21 coach, Peter de Villiers had achieved. In fact, Peter de Villiers had never lost as a junior Springbok coach to the All Blacks. I don't think either as an under 19 or to the baby Blacks. So, and the the under 21 team that won under the guy who went to Australia now, Clyde Rathbone, that had John de Villiers in it and all those guys. That was Peter de Villiers' under 19 team. It was a successful under 19 team before they were successful as under 21s under Jake White. So the idea that Peter de Villiers took over Jake White's team is flawed in the sense that, that was his team at under 19. But you'll never hear that. You'll never hear the credit being given to Peter for grooming those under 19s well enough to be competitive at under 20 or under 21 level, and therefore become ready for Springbok level. All the credit went to Jake. And then when things go wrong, all the blame went to Peter de Villiers, which I found hilarious. The New Zealand's worst record against South Africa came in 2008 and 2009 under Peter de Villiers. They lost 5 straight tests to Peter de Villiers at the time. And in 2 years as Springbok coach, Peter didn't lose a test to the All Blacks. Peter won twice in New Zealand, the most by anyone since until Rassie came. Well, I don't think Rassie won twice. Rassie won and drew in New Zealand. So you're just gonna have to look further back and try to think which coach has actually achieved 2 victories in New Zealand as Springbok coach. Jake White never won one single test in New Zealand as coach of the Springboks, not one. Peter won at Dunedin, the House of Pain, where South Africa hadn't won in 100 years. That's Peter de Villiers' record, winning the British and Irish Lions tour, which they had beaten. I think it had been 40 years since the Springboks have beaten the British and Irish Lions. And you can go on. I mean, like, these are many things, but for some reason, and he lost only by 2 points in the World Cup quarterfinals to the Wallabies, where it was clear as daylight that the referee was shocking on the day. So you put that all together, and Peter de Villiers is seen as a failure, yet Jake White is seen as a success. Or,
the lack of balance,
the disrespect, actually, the blatant disrespect, because the first black Springbok coach cannot be a good coach. He cannot go down in history as a successful coach. He has to go down as with a clown red nose on his face, is how they used to depict him. That's how he must be remembered, for the things he said, not the things he did. Mind you, the Springbok players of the time, the same Jake White Springbok players, they will tell you to this day that Peter took many media knocks to make sure that they were able to just play the game. He was the perfect foil for guys to avoid media scrutiny, to avoid the public limelight, and just so that they can just focus on their rugby. Not to say nothing happened that required media scrutiny a lot. Obviously, it's high performance arenas. There's lots of scrutiny. But Peter took that to himself. He says, no, guys, they want me. It's my head that they're after. So I will give myself to the mob, so to speak, to the lynch mob. Then you guys can just focus on playing your rugby. And again, that they won't remember that. No, they will remember all the other stuff in and around it. They'll remember the losses. They'll remember the tough 2010 year. Mind you, when you think of Peter's record, man, it's crazy, because I can just keep going, because it coincided with my first time as not a senior, but a mainstream sports writer, was during Peter's time. In that time, that was Brian Habana's longest spell without scoring a try. He had I think 48 tries or 47 and was one behind Jos van der Westhuizen, and it affected him. And no other coach has had Brian Habana struggle that much. That's your best player. That's your world player of the year. And he went through 2010 and he couldn't score because of this, monkey on his back. And you wonder why then they struggled so much. So no other coach had that. If he had a try scoring Brian Habana, brimming with form, if he had a lot of things, but again, people only look at the bad things and they'll never factor that into the equation when it comes to Peter's legacy.
Garnet, one final question for you before we.
Can I just come in there?
Yeah, sure, no problem. By all means.
And the accolades is what you play for. You play for your FIFA. You play for 10 wicket hauls, and like you said, people don't get acknowledged for what they have done, their achievements. And I want to start with Afro Prince Alvaro Peterson that scored 501 in
the UK.
Nobody knows about it. Alvaro mentioned the other day that he scored the most hundreds that nobody
in a row. South African record. I think a world record as well.
World record. Rugby, they are so stats orientated. And this is the question that Alvaro asked, how do you miss that? How do you guys miss that? So it's either it's deliberately. Then I'm going to go to Lonwabo Tutobo, who was the best bowler, number 1 ranked bowler. He's also gone. We don't hear about him. They Makaya on 300 and 390 wickets, 100 and 101 test matches. Surely there should have been a discussion around he's 10 wickets away. He could have easily taken those 10 wickets in one game, knowing what he needs to achieve. You never know. But yet, he falls short. There was no... and I'm sure if I had to ask Makaya would have said, I wanted to play. Because if I was Makaya, I would have wanted to play. I've only got 450 first-class wickets, and I fought to get that 450, or even the closer I got, it became more difficult. So these are the accolades that we need to reward our people with, which is forgotten, and that is sad because in rugby they talk about it. I'm sure there will be the same cases in all the sport.
Yeah, no, Garnet, just on that point, Makaya says he was told that he needs to let younger guys, come in. And the way Graham Smith defended it was to say that, every sportsman or woman wants to play longer than they can play.
I'll bite my own toenails to play those, just to get those couple of wickets. Because, really now, we all know that whatever Graham Smith says must be flushed down the toilet. Because just of me personally knowing Makaya, I know that he would have played until he couldn't anymore. And I was part of a test series where Alan Donald also fought and he got injured trying to play. But I'm sure this wouldn't have happened to Makaya because I know he was still fit.
You even look at how long Dale Steyn remained a Protea with a shoulder that wouldn't get right. Yet he would just come off the street, come off the rehab center, straight into the Proteas team, no questions asked whatsoever, because it's Dale Steyn and he has to beat Sean Pollock's record at whatever cost. They've even gone on record to say that they wanted Mark Boucher to get 150 test matches. How do you want someone to get 100? I think Mark Boucher has a record of having gone 19 or 29 innings or something crazy like that without a 50 or score over 50, which is diabolical to me when you had guys like Tami Tolegile in the system, who at some point was averaging 60. That's 6-0 in 4-day cricket. And mind you, there was a year, that same year where Tammy was averaging 60. It was the
Yes.
same year where he broke the record for dismissals in one first class game. South Africa got 8. I was at the game. It was in Durban, and I interviewed him on it. And it's crazy that was happening. Yet they were trying to push Boucher over the line. Here's Tammy producing historic numbers. He was behind only to Alviro Peterson in batting averages. And when you think of Alviro as a out-and-out batsman and so good as well, to be second to Alviro is not a thing to just, poke your nose at. That is a huge achievement. If your average is just behind Alviro Peterson's, that means you're doing bloody well.
Gentlemen,
Definitely.
thank you so much for... Sorry, Garnet. I wish we had more time, gents. I wish we had another extra hour to discuss this topic, but it's been an absolute pleasure having both of you here to discuss racism in sport. Hopefully we can have you guys again, and hopefully we would have had some sort of solution with regards to how we can go ahead and achieve full transformation in both cricket and in rugby and in other sporting codes. Sibusiso Mjikeliso, thank you so much for making the time for us. And of course, Garnet Kruger, we thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Garnet. Cheers, Faro.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, guys. Well, we've heard it there. Zbu Mjikeliso and Garnet Kruger. Because Garnet speaking from experience as a former Protea, and of course, Zbu talking to the likes of Tando Manana and so many other non-white rugby players of the challenges that they needed to face. And my parting shot is quite simple. For us to achieve full transformation, we need our administrators and we need our decision makers to go ahead and push for full transformation. That's how we're going to get the perfect equality in all of our sporting codes. And of course, it filters down to corporates and in other avenues within the South African economic sector. So for myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the production team, do enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see you again, same time, same place, for Truth to Power. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.